I'd like to call to order the Health and Human Services Committee. Voting members of the committees are legislators Kelly, Duchessis, Isabel, and Bertel. Privilege of the floor. Hearing none, we have two resolutions tonight. First resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget. Looking for I'll sponsor. I'm looking for a second. Legislator Kelly. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. That resolution will move to the full legislature. Next resolution, resolution amending the 2021 operating budget, public health coronavirus crisis response grant fund.
I'll sponsor.
Sponsored by Legislator Patel.
Second.
Legislator Sweet. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. That resolution will move to the full legislature. Anything other for Health and Human Services? Motion to so moved. Legislator Kelly. Second, Legislator Patel. Thank you.
Welcome.
6:02.
6:02, Physical Service Committee, like to call it to order. Martin Kelly, Brian Sweet, John DeChesi, Joe Isabel. Floor is open for discussion. So hearing none, I have a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget, CHIPS program, Fund of Public Works. Sponsored. Legislator Kelly, Legislator Sweet, sorry. All those in favor, move it to a full board.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Next resolution, authorizing the county exec to enter an intermunicipal agreement between the Village of Cambridge area wastewater treatment plant and the Montgomery Sanitary District Number 1, sludge treatment disposal.
I'll sponsor.
Legislator Patel, Legislator Sweet. All those in favor, move it to a full board.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Anything on the other?
Is that staying the same, Megan?
Yeah, the terms aren't changing with that contract.
Make a motion to adjourn. Legislator Kelly,
Legislator Sweet.
Legislator Sweet.
All right. In Legislator Isabel's absence, I'm going to call the Public Safety Committee to order tonight at 6:03. First thing on the agenda is discussion. Legislature hearing none, move right on to the resolutions. First resolution is a resolution accepting criminal justice discovery reform grant authorizing the county executive to sign agreement. Mr. Attorney, sponsored by Kelly, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Wilson, discussion. Rain would like to.
Sure. I don't know if these resolutions come next, but if I can talk about all of it, we did get the criminal justice reform grant in the amount of $206,781. And that was really put into play to I think we talked about this at the last meeting briefly, but this is to make up for all of the additional responsibilities as a result of bail reform and the new discovery demands. I think, Jeff would certainly speak to this as well, that and any member of law enforcement or a DA's office could tell you that the responsibilities now have at least tripled from what we had before. The ramifications of not meeting timely discovery demands can be drastic. One person's job has turned into a 3-man job. Having said that, we already started somewhat behind the 8 ball in this position, and when I came in January, I made an assessment, and I said to the county executive, here's what I need in my office, and of course, at that time, we were starting with a certain amount in the contingency fund, and he said, you can ask for one of those 3 positions that you need. So now that we have the grant money, I'm looking to come in and get the other positions that I need. One of them is the first assistant position. So let me just say that all of the positions I'm asking for, you'll see that in the resolution, there's an amount attributable to fund balance. It's my understanding that that's because the grant will or has been deposited in the fund balance. But essentially, this is being covered by either a movement from one of my lines to another or the grant itself. And by my estimation and spreadsheet that I've prepared, there's still about $93,353.24 left just to sit in the fund that we haven't requested to be allocated. The first assistant position that I'm asking for, every county in the state of New York has a first assistant in their office except for us, and I believe Schoharie, but she hasn't answered me, but there's 3 people in that office, so I wouldn't be surprised if, I think one of them's her son, so she's probably next in line, and he's probably next in line anyway, but this position essentially is the person that stands in the shoes if something happens to me, if I'm not available or not there. There will be a day that I would like to go on a vacation. I don't know when that will be, but I would like to be able to do that and know someone was running the office. There's also going to be a lot of other responsibilities added into that position, such as monitoring the calendar, the administrative things that would take me away from and allow me to do other things that are more important, in my opinion, for my role in the county and your taxpayer dollars. So that, as you can see, the way the money is moved around, again, covered by either internal movements or the grant. The other position is a law clerk. So this is sort of a halftime, a benefit to us because it's a lawyer, but they're not admitted in the state of New York. One of the first priorities for that position that I have is going to be finding all of the grants that are available to the county for our department and having all of that paperwork ready and available so that January 1, when these start to come out and submissions are required, we're just hitting print and pen is already to paper. So I want to get ahead of that so that we are prepared and that we're constantly replenishing the fund for the positions we've asked for. If someday these grants run out, I want to be in a position to say to you that I have done some work to try to bring other grants in and replenish what I'm asking you to give me. And let me just say this, we get a lot of grant funding from ILS, and one of the things I'm asking our legislatures is, at the state level and federal level, what are you doing for the prosecution? I mean, we get a $30,000 grant for aid to prosecution. And you can see, because you voted on all of the positions for the public defender's office, how much indigent legal services gets. And I'm not opposed to that, but I'm saying it's really, when you look at it, and I'm not saying we don't need it because we do, but you have to balance the scales. And so these positions that are seemingly free really aren't, because there's a cost on the other end, right? Our law enforcement is wasting their time if I can't prosecute the cases and I don't have the adequate staff and tools necessary to do that. So this is, in a small way, which feels like a big way, but luckily for now we have some grant money, getting me to the point where I can do what it is I was elected to do and what I feel is necessary to keep the county safe and my office moving. The last position is the network administrator. Jeff and I came to you for a part-time microcomputer technician, again, based on what we could work with the funds we had at the time. The need for a full-time network administrator that we're going to share is already there. I can tell you, just having him in the office for the past couple of weeks has been a true blessing. We're all paperless. I mean, everything I do, all of my ADAs does at this point is electronic. And we need that person, and I think Jeff is getting a CAD system. I'm always misquoting the amount of that, the cost of that.
The total cost project was $1.7 million over 10 years.
So $1.7 million project over 10 years. I think I can speak for Jeff to say that he's got a great network administrator. They're already taxed with the amount of workload that he has, the volume that he has. Supplementing that with a half-time person is going to benefit his office. It's going to benefit my office. We will continue to share that position, and next year it'll be budgeted accordingly. But, you know, again, back to, there was a miscommunication, but I've talked it over with Mike Papp and Matt this morning, and we all agree that the money came in from the grant. There is also a piece of it that we didn't finish the resolutions on. I'm waiting to hear exactly how to write them. But part of that grant, we agreed to share some of the money with local law enforcement, and that was it was built into the grant that we would do that. So there's about $22,000 of that money going to the Amsterdam Police Department, St. Johnsville Police, Fort Plain, and Kennedy-Gary. It was based on the number of arraignments. The Department of Criminal Justice System gave us the arraignments per year of each agency, and so we did a pro rata to decide how much each of them would get. But with that, even with the money going to law enforcement, with the funds that I'm asking you for, there's still going to be money, like I said, $93,000 and change.
Discussion?
Thank you for your presentation. I think that the parts that hit home to me, and I have discussed this with you before, is that it's nice to get grant programs and hire people, but once those grants are done, we own those people. We own the liability for the future. I don't know how to make me or anybody else feel better about that, but I think it's something that I always want to be cautious about.
Absolutely, and you know, there's no perfect answer to that other than that we can keep fighting and keep looking and keep applying for grants, but at the end of the day, we have to get the work done. And as I said, you know, we have the crime rate is escalating. We're coming out of COVID where courts are opening. Literally last week, I was on 2 computers of 2 different courtrooms, and they were looking for another body for another courtroom, and we didn't have someone to send. And again, everybody's working hard in this county. We've had 3 major drug task force exercises. The Sheriff's Department, Amsterdam Police Department, we work with federal agencies. Everybody's working hard in this county, and it's useless if we can't prosecute the cases. You know, I'm at town courts at night, so I'm not asking anything of my staff that I wouldn't do myself. So I work all day and I go to town court at night because that's what I owe. My obligation to the taxpayers is to get the job done even when we're understaffed. But we can't, you know, I can't continue that's what I forgot to ask Nicole. The overtime for the recent trial we had a 5-week-long trial. The overtime in my office, I'm sure, is gonna be a big chunk of one of these line items that I'm moving. Because we just can't tell the courts that we can't prosecute a case. You know, we just can't not be there. And when we get into a big trial like that, it was a serious trial. As I said, 5 weeks long. I mean, we're running like hamsters in a wheel, and everybody's covering the caseload so that the assistant district attorney who's assigned to that case can give it their first priority. And that's what you should expect of us. But I have to ask you to help me do that. You've been great to me so far, and I appreciate it, but I need your help on these 3 items.
Point well taken.
Any further discussion on this resolution?
Is the money in the account or is it still pending?
So, to clarify, we did receive the grant money, but there's always a but. This grant money ran from, I believe, April 1st of last year through March 31st of this year. It was claimed for using last year's expenses. So reimbursement of last year's expenses, but the VA asking to be able to use the funds this year for these new positions.
I think that's what everybody's doing. The time period for which the grant requested you to submit the impact that the bail reform had on your office was for that preceding year. But after I spoke to Mike today, he agreed that, you know, should it just go back to the county coffer funds where it's already been spent, or should it be used for what's intended to keep up with what we spent last year, but keep moving forward? So, I mean, it can sit there, or it can be utilized for what, in my mind, it was intended for.
And so being this is reimbursement from expenditures from the previous year's budget, are you decreasing those line items that you used to get this, or your budget is status quo? And
That's why in the resolution, you're seeing the money coming from fund balance and not increasing the grant
Okay.
The way it was explained to me, that's where it was deposited, so if I'm not, I know there was a lot of discussion last Friday, I, am trying to understand the entire process, but if my logic is some kind of a misconception, please tell me, because I'm not sure. It just seems like the natural flow to me, but, certainly, if I'm wrong, I would stand corrected.
Good. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution approving a retirement and transfer of K-9 gauge. I'll sponsor, I need a second.
I'll second.
Legislator Patel. Any discussion? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget COVID-19 crisis response grant carryover fund. They need a sponsor.
I'll sponsor.
Legislator Wilson, second by Legislator Kelly. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget equipment. Sheriff. Legislator
I'll second.
Tidwell, Legislator Patel. Discussion. Sheriff, you wanna?
Sure, this was a drug forfeiture case from December of 2019. And it went through the federal government and the DEA asset forfeitures. And because of that, everybody gets a little piece of the pie. The district attorney's office receives some money and every police agency in the county. And the DA's office, the feds, and the sheriff's office receiving the three largest amounts because of being the lead agency in place. And we're trying to put that right back towards investigative equipment and future drug investigation money, which we believe will, benefit all of us.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget motor vehicle equipment. I'll sponsor, need a second.
Okay.
Legislator Tidwell, discussion. Sheriff, you want to explain this one?
Not really. Yes, I will. A deputy unfortunately had a very unfortunate incident with a light pole in the Amsterdam High School parking lot. And because of the year of the vehicle and mileage, it was actually totaled. So this money is recovered from the insurance company, and we'll swallow the rest of it from within our budget, our current budget, to make it whole and replace it as part of our fleet. And it has been addressed.
Oh, sure.
So Sheriff, that's a 2016, that's a nice recovery for a 2016. Was it a Suburban or?
No, it was a patrol car, and the insurance company has an agreement for law enforcement agencies.
Nice.
Yes.
Very good, thank you for your hard work.
Any other discussion? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution transferring funds and amending the 2021 operating budget. Public defender, I need a sponsor. Legislator Wilson, second.
I'll second.
Legislator Patel. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Does anyone have anything under other? If not, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second. Got two, three, what do you want? What do you want to say?
6:19.
6:19. All right, this time we'll call the Education and Government Committee to order.
Wait a minute.
We good? At 6:19. First thing on the agenda is discussion. Anyone have anything to discuss pertaining to this committee? Not, then move right on to the resolutions. First resolution is a resolution confirming the reappointment term of representatives to Fulton, Montgomery, and Superior County Workforce Development Board made by the county executive. I need a sponsor.
I'll sponsor.
Mr. Patel, second. I'll second it. Discussion?
We have one vacancy. I'm assuming that's the county executive's appointment, or correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Yes.
They're all,
The appointment is made by the county executive and confirmed by you guys. So you see in the bottom of the resolution the appointment.
So are these all full, Montgomery County residents?
I doubt it.
No, there'd still be one vacancy. We're reappointing two people whose terms expire.
Right.
There's still one vacancy.
Very good, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution authorizing county executive to sign agreement, continuation of the CLEO agreement between the county of Montgomery and the counties of Fulton and Superior.
Sponsor.
Second.
Mr. Patel, second by legislator Wilson. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution adopting introductory law C, local law 3 of 2021, a local law designating scenic byways in Montgomery County legislature. Any sponsor?
Sponsor.
Dr. Diamond, second. Legislator Wilson, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Can't go any further down. I'm not doing anything wrong.
You exceeded your time limit,
Yeah, it
Mr.
must be.
Chairman.
Right on the pages.
Read the right one, right?
Yeah. You were.
Only one? Okay.
Yeah.
Resolution, and the next resolution is a resolution adopting introductory law, local law D, local law 4 of 2021, local law adopting a pilot youth hunting program. I need a sponsor.
Sponsor.
Legislator Martin, legislator Patel. She said that last meeting.
I know.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstaining? So carried. The next resolution is a resolution confirming appointment of assigned council administrator made by a county executive. Need a sponsor.
Sponsor.
Mr. Diamond, second. I'll second it. Discussion.
What is this? What is an assigned council administrator?
Matt?
This is, last year we had to create a new department, to separate out the public defender from the assigned council administrator. It's basically a mandate from the state that those be separated, because what happens is when a conflict comes to the public defender's office and they can't represent all parties, one of the parties gets referred out to assigned counsel, and it's a conflict for the public defender's office to be in charge of assigning the case to somebody and paying vouchers and that kind of thing. So we created a new department in the fall for the assigned counsel administrator, whose duties will be to take cases that are conflicted out by the public defender and send them out to assigned counsel for those cases. So because there's a new department created, we needed an appointment for a new department head of the assigned council administrator, which was included in the budget this year. And you guys have now received that appointment.
So, Matt?
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So, what is the, I know it says the position was included in the budget, what is the financial impact of this? And, I mean, is this a supplement another position, or is it a totally separate position with no other?
We just did the budgetary transfer for the last.
This is funded through through the grant that the Public Defender's Office gets. It's going to be included for, I believe, last year, this year, and next year. It's a 3-year grant.
So it's a pass-through.
Well, we get the grant, and the salary of the assigned council administrator is completely covered, to my knowledge, for 3 years.
But is it a total separate position, or is it a position that's augmented for this purpose? In other words, is it it's a new position?
It's a new position you guys created in the fall.
Right. And it, okay. And what is that position pay, Sean? Do you know?
Roy can tell you what's in the budget, it's 23.
23?
We
Budget
just,
23.
we just moved money to that.
Oh, that's the AED, that's not the budget.
Yeah.
How much do you move that budget?
We, 156,000 is what we moved out of 28.
Yeah, but a lot of that is to pay the actual assigned terms, that's not for salary.
The what?
The resolution that was moved earlier actually moved money from the Public Defender's Office to pay for the assigned counsel, not to pay for this particular individual's salary.
So
Their salary is
the whole
adopted in
department
the budget.
was 156,000?
I believe in the budget was adopted, I believe, for 130,000, and this 150 is additional adding to that budget.
We get the vouchers.
I believe the expense side of in essence, I work as a conflict defender's office. The expenses, I believe, were 112,000 adopted in the 2020 budget.
For
For the
pay
conflict defender.
and
It covered the this administrator's salary, a part-time clerical person for this administrator, plus some office
Bennies?
supplies, work fees and stuff.
And where did the bennies get picked up out of?
The bennies are paid on a personal.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
60.
60. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with M.A. Schaefer Construction, Inc. for FMCC Financial Technology Lab renovation project. I'll sponsor, need a second.
I'll second.
Legislator Wilson, discussion. Barry, you have anything you want to add?
No, this is the project that we've been talking about for a couple of years. It's 100% funded by the foundation and the state, so there's no county dollars associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Kelly. Oh, you're seconding? Oh,
Did we get a second?
Yeah, you already got a sweet and Wilson.
yeah, sweet Wilson.
Your third?
I'll be third.
Martin Kelly the third. Any other discussion on this resolution? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution authorizing amendment number 1 to the municipal loan and reimbursement agreement dated March 1, 1997.
Sponsor.
Legislator Patel, second. I'll second it. Discussion.
Everybody's familiar with what that is?
If not, you want to go with it?
Basically, there was an agreement going back to 1997 when the county bonded for the Canal Park, that there'd be a method of paying it back that would occur, I believe, when they transferred property to a new owner, such as a business that moves in there. And so Ken had brought this up recently, and I think it's a good thing, because for years we've been asking what the 900,000 was on the books. Anybody else?
Anything else, Ken?
Yeah, clarify that a little bit. So, just so you're aware how that agreement worked at the time when the county bonded for that, there was this memorandum, this agreement that was in place between the county IDA and Montgomery County itself, because the county is one that took out the bond on that. So what would happen is, we found the agreement in January finally. It was actually upstairs in hard copy, no one had it at the county level, but we did find the
And basically how that agreement is worded in a nutshell is that when we sold property in Glen Park, that money would come back to the county until that $900,000 was paid off. So to date, we had land sales in Glen Park of $135,450, and we got that check to the county a couple weeks ago, I think. So that $900,000 would be reduced by that, and then with the land sale, it would be a subsequent resolution that you guys look at finance. We would be selling, the county idea would be selling based upon an appraisal, the 20 acres up at the park where the DPW and our office is being built for $170,000. So that would further reduce that $900,000. And talking to the county attorney, because it was a little ambiguous. So what we do is we're going to clean it up, whereby at one point in time the county purchased two with proceeds another 200 acres in the back of the park. So what we're going to do is clean up this agreement to include those 200 acres.
Okay.
So that way, if there's any land sales back there on those 200 acres, that money would become down and continue paying down this debt service until that $900,000 is paid off.
Okay.
In all honesty, I mean, you guys all know the wetland issues in the back of that park. I think the best thing we could potentially hope for would be some type of solar project, maybe, where that revenue comes back into the county. Other than that, if it is a business, we have water, wastewater issues up there as well that would be, further down the road with some remediation of the wetlands that are up there, so.
Brian?
Yes.
So how many acres of the 200 acres is usable, say if we did a solar project?
If we did, well, solar's slightly different, they can mix
yeah.
around the wetlands, but what we've done, because of the amount of wetlands up there, is we kind of took a development area of about 100 acres, and we're still looking at 3 to 4 acres of federal wetland disturbance, but that's kind of what we, it's gonna be developed. We've been shortlisted on a couple of projects, so we just use that 100 acres, that's kind of dead center of the 200. But like I said, the 3 acres of federal wetland disturbance is, it's pretty costly, so, and then, and the water and wastewater issues, so. And then to update you guys on that, just so you are aware, we did drop cameras down in those wells. This is part of the money that was authorized through the sheriff's office and that we're paying for through the IDA. They did drop the cameras. We looked at the two best wells, and then they're hoping to get back up on site to actually do that 72-hour flow test. Because I know there's some issues up at the public safety facility. I'm talking to the sheriff about that, and we'll keep you guys apprised of what those tests come back, and hopefully we can move forward with some type of potable water supply from one of those wells.
So they're gonna drop pumps and pump for 72 hours?
72 hour, yeah, 72-hour pump test, just to see what the yield is and see if there's anything left at the time. We're anticipating at least one of the wells should be thinking what we have for that.
Mhm.
Has been studied, and apparently it's up there, so. we'll
Right.
see.
Like 100 gallons a minute, or?
Well, what we first heard is that one of the wells, when they first dug it, we thought we were hearing numbers of 80 to 100 gallons a minute, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this resolution? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Next resolution is a resolution setting the date of the public hearing on FMCC's proposed 2021-2022 budget. I'll sponsor, need a second.
I'll second.
Legislator Diamond, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So carried. Under other, Greg, do you have anything you want to add at all?
We can discuss it this month or next. I think typically we discuss it next month before the next committee meeting, but you should have a copy of our proposed budget where the good news is we're not asking for an increase in your sponsor contributions. So, we can certainly have that discussion next month.
Very well. No one has anything else, any motion to adjourn? Legislator Diamond, I'll second. At 6:34.
I'd like to call to order the Personnel Committee at 6:34. Voting members of the committee are legislators Headwell, Duchessis, Isabel, and Patel. Privilege of the floor. Very good, we'll go on to the resolutions. First resolution is a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget for the district attorney and county sheriff, establishing a full-time network system administrator and eliminating a microcomputer technician.
Sponsor.
Legislator Sweet. Legislator Headwell. Discussion. Legislator Bertel.
You know, not so much on district attorneys or the sheriff's office, but we seem to have a continuing shortage or shortfall in the data IT department. I know that the Office of the Board of Elections has some problems that are having a hard time being resolved. You know, I think at some time we need to have a discussion of where we are with that or what's going on. It just seems like a slow process. I know that when the district attorney was looking to have 5 computers installed in January, they sat on her floor because there was nobody to install them. So I'd like to keep an eye on that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Motion moves to the full legislature, or the resolution moves to the full legislature. Next resolution, a resolution amending the 2021 operating budget and establishing the position of First Assistant District Attorney. Sponsor is Legislator Sweet, Legislator Headwell. So the financial impact of this is they're transferring between lines and it's be budgeted for future budget.
So, yes, so I understand this. Are they eliminating the assistant district attorney's position for $11,585 and adding it to the full-time position that was budgeted for $33,473 to create this final? So are we eliminating a part-time district attorney?
Well, they're making it part-time and full-time jobs. County treasurer.
Trying to clarify that. My understanding is the person, well, if you're looking at the resolution, the assistant DA currently in line 66 is becoming the first assistant DA, and they've been unable to hire a part-time ADA under line 1292. So she's taking the balance left in where the person currently is working out of now, and the part-time money to make a first ADA.
So
You are eliminating a full-time position and creating a full-time position, and you're eliminating a part-time position.
we're just unfunding it, basically, right? The part-time position, and if the district attorney comes back, then we will have to reappropriate the money out of fund balance
Well, like I said, this pretty much takes all the money from the 2 lines.
Right.
To put the new line. And just, well, I'm not talking against it, but these positions with the DA, these are all local dollars that will have to be budgeted for moving forward.
and the possibility that we might have that same line item, 1292, in the budget next year to be filled.
That's what she asked for.
Sure, thank you.
Legislator Sweet.
Sean, is there a way that we can, or that your office can have a report that you add to every time we do one of these positions that are grant funded? Is there a way to separate that out so that at the end of the year, and then the new budget comes up, and there's no money from a grant, but the position is there, we know that, oh, last year that position was grant funded, this year we don't have the
Well,
grant.
right, like I said, I can tell you without confidence, all these positions you're adding for the ADA, both previously and now going forward, none of it is grant funded. It's all local dollars.
And there's a possibility that these others can remain those lines and be funded in the next budget.
And it's gonna be up to, like I said, when the budget packets actually go out next month, and we'll start the budget process in August, you're going to see a huge increase in the DA budget requests, just because of the number of positions that she's added so far.
I think, just to expound on what Brian's saying, is there a way for you, when you
Yeah,
present
I
things
can
to
break
us?
down, like I said, when we're dealing with new positions,
That you can
how
put,
many were created from grant.
I think he's saying to put like an asterisk on that line that says that it's grant funded, or it was grant funded and the grants are expiring.
If I can.
Is that what
just
you were saying?
Step in real quick. Usually what we do when there's a position funded by a grant, and the intention is for it to be paid by the grant, we put language in the resolution that says this position shall only exist for as long as the grant, and when the grant is gone, it is eliminated. And personnel usually tracks that.
But I think what Brian is looking for is a tickler in the budget preparation that says, hey,
Yeah.
look, this was funded at one time for a grant, it is no longer funded, or it expires on 11/30/21.
At one point, we had that in our budget policy that we requested that the executive give to us.
Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, I'll work on something to report for it.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, John.
Legislator Kelly.
That's what
Oh,
I wanted to say.
all right.
You said it. Said it well. Where are we?
No, I know where we are, I'm just still curious as far as the transfer from the 2 lines to the 1, and that's gonna come out of local dollars, Sean?
Yeah, this is the, like, well, the two lines you're transferring from were adopted in the 2021 budget.
Okay,
And they, in essence, they were funded through
through what?
the tax levy.
Okay.
So you're zeroing them out and
For
using that money.
2021.
It's the next one.
But in 2022, you're going to
That's
have
tax.
to, it's gonna be a local expense, you're gonna have to either increase taxes or make cuts elsewhere to.
Right. Gotcha. Any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Right.
Opposed? I think it carries.
I'm not on the committee.
We could pass it without a recommendation on this. So, on this resolution, I would say it carries to the full legislature. Next resolution, resolution amending the 2021 operating budget. Resolution establishing a full-time law clerk and amending the 2021 operating budget. District attorney looking for a sponsor. All right, so this,
I'll sponsor it just for discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
I'm not in favor of using the grant funding the way that it was presented to us, because that grant funding has already been recaptured and received on previous year's money. So there really isn't a net positive to the fund balance, because we were reimbursed for those expenses in the previous budget. So we are depleting the fund balance by creating this position, because the grant money has already been recaptured and realized in the previous year for other expenses. It's the way I understand it.
Correct.
So was there a surplus, Sean, that was put into the fund balance after all the expenses were paid?
No, almost all your grants through the state are on a reimbursement basis.
So it's whatever we spend, we get back.
Yes.
Yeah.
According
So in
to-
essence, because this grant went through March 30, well, started April 2020 through March of 21. But when they submitted the claim for reimbursement, they used the 2020 expenses. And we received the actual payment of this grant towards the end of April. So we received the grant funds at the end of April.
Okay. Legislator Patel.
Does anybody know what the downside risk is of not appropriating this?
I don't know, she didn't notice. I told her I was gonna have her talk during this, during the discussion, but,
I think I'd feel more comfortable dealing with this if I knew what the downside risk is of not
Of not doing it, yeah.
appropriating this.
Yeah. Well, we could forward it with a no recommendation, have a district attorney here for the full board.
Or someone could pull their sponsor.
Do that.
When-
Legislator Kelly.
When she was talking, I believe she said that the law clerk would be the person working on administrative things such as going after grant funding and stuff. They would be a lawyer but not recognized by the bar, I believe, is the
You
term.
recognize in New Jersey, but not in New York.
Yeah, I know. So I think that's what she's looking at using this position for. That would be the downside. If she doesn't have this person, they're not.
Gonna get grants.
We'll get the grants.
I pulled my sponsorship, but there's no other discussion. I don't support this resolution.
Anyone like to sponsor the resolution?
I'll pick up the sponsor just so that we can have her come back at the full board.
Okay.
And give her the opportunity to explain to us fully, and then we can make a decision there to vote it up or down. At least it's in play. I agree, I don't know, I totally agree with this money, how this money has been allocated, but at least give her the opportunity to present a case.
Oh, sure. Legislator.
No, Bob was first.
The last thing that I want to do is spend money out of the fund balance. The last thing I want to do is hire more positions. I mean, I'd really like to come to all of you guys and say, let's look at the whole county and look at positions that haven't been filled right now. I don't really want to fill this position, but I also kind of understand where the law enforcement is at the moment and what needs to be done. And I'm kind of hoping that she's not coming here, standing here in front of us tonight saying that she needed this position and she was hurt, really needed it, and she really didn't need it. Because I think she's doing a nice job in the office. I think she's trying to get a lot done. And, I'm torn between both directions, and I really feel that she wouldn't have come to us and said that she needed this position. She really didn't need this position, and I think that she's finding out that she wants to get a lot of things done, and she needs it.
Legislator Kelly.
So I would agree, I think that she is working hard at her job. We've seen a lot of changes so far, financial. I don't know that another 30 days, waiting till the next committee meeting and having her come back or educate us in the meantime is going to affect the quality of work coming out of there. I would like a running kind of total accounting of what financial changes have occurred in that department since January 1st, so we have a better understanding. And I don't mind waiting another 30 days to the next committee meeting to come back and have another discussion about it. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Legislator Kelly.
And with this resolution, the first one of this committee, we already moved forward for 31,000, so we're almost at 80,000 from the fund balance to create 2 positions.
Well, move to full legislature.
Yeah, like,
So, I'll just add my 2 cents. So one of the issues is, the original budget was prepared by your predecessor, so, if the sheriff was elected or Brittany Colby was elected, we provided some leeway. They appear before the legislature and we try to get them what they want to do the job the way they feel they need to do it. The part that's unsettling for me is to come back again. So, and we had that issue with DMV when we passed our budget in the very first year, or the very first month they came back, wanted to add another position, And that went on for like 3 or 4 months before we added, I think, a part-time position or whatever. But the issue is, for me, is, you were here, you gave your presentation, this is what you needed, and now a month later, 2 months later, you're back. So I think, there needs to be an explanation, and I'm glad the legislators, Sweet sponsored it, I seconded it, and we'll get the DA to come back, whether it's the next committee meeting or if you want at the full board once. I'm not sure how long it takes to put the financials together.
I think I'd rather see it come back, if you don't mind. I'd like to see it come back in committee so we can have a more of a discussion
Okay.
in a committee fashion than going through, 20 resolutions on our meeting night and,
How about the first resolution then?
I think that one also.
I'll pull my sponsorship on this resolution.
And the first one,
I don't think I sponsored the first one, did I? Did I?
the first two, you and Hadwell.
Yeah.
So on all of them?
So they'll all come back for the next committee meeting.
Maybe we could have Lorraine give us a comparison for a county similar size to Montgomery County, what budgets are and that, a couple different counties, if they're similar to what we're looking for. I understand that with this bail reform, things will change a lot.
So all three are gonna come back next month.
Okay.
And if you could just let her know that we'd like a comparison from other counties and from Sean for next month's committee, if you could have our impact, budget impact.
So from the district attorney, a comparison from other counties
As far as staffing.
as staffing.
And then I think also we'd have Dan Cologne kind of chime in on the technician part of it, because I don't think we've heard from him as far as what he feels is necessary for these positions. 'Cause we were at one point trying to have everything go through Dan, whether it be purchasing or staffing.
It just seems like we're bringing in more outside IT help that's not, under his control or, so if.
And so this department's getting IBMs, they're getting.
Right,
Dells,
right,
they're
so
getting HPs.
not saying that it can't happen that way, but.
But I think one of the things that they said about that is that the jail uses one type of system, and the DA was using using the same system, so there was like 2 different systems that they were using.
Something happened from the last meeting to this meeting where it was part-time, now it's full-time. So I'm not sure what that is. I'd like to, get an explanation on that.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
so are we putting all those resolutions back until next month?
Yes. I get to read them all to you again. Anything under other?
We might even get your picture.
Not, only not.
We're not to that row.
Motion to adjourn. Legislator Edwell, seconded by Legislator Patel.
There you go.
6:54.
Okay, I call the Budget and Finance Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is discussion. Anyone have any discussion? Yes, Legislator Patel.
Can you bring us up to date, or maybe Sean can bring us up to date on where we are with the city of Amsterdam and that money that was in question?
Sean?
I haven't got any more payments from them. I have got a few more write-offs from Casey, the deputy.
Write-offs that we're agreeing with?
Yes, that, to reduce the balance that's currently on the phone, so it's still, the process is slowing down,
But they did forward the money like from the bankruptcy cases, right?
Correct.
It's like 27,000.
They've moved some, they paid us for some bankruptcy, those outs that they found, they paid us for, payment arrangements, payment agreements that they had set up for the older taxes. We got those cleaned up, and it's still working.
Good. So everybody's working together, and it sounds like we're picking up some dollars and clarifying the rest.
It's not a huge windfall, but it's little by little.
Very good, thank you. Thank you.
I just want to share, for either Megan or Sean, has the land bank, or, land bank thing been paid and confirmed, and are we all know that?
The land bank paid for the original properties that were discussed the last time he was here. There was still three properties that, they were disputing, two in the village of Fultonville, one in the village of Fort Plain. And my understanding is they're gonna let them go.
So they'll go to, and when's our auction, Sean?
Problem I have right now is, we're under a state issued moratorium. We can't do a foreclosure until at least after August 31st.
Okay,
That's the earliest we can start the process again.
okay.
So honestly, if we are able to start right after August 31st, I don't know if we're gonna have time to have one in the fall. It may have to wait till spring.
Martin, just one second. Sean, so the property on Ann Street in Fultonville is owned by the county at the present time?
No, like I said, it's on the foreclosure list to be foreclosed on. Actually, both properties
Who
on the street.
who actually, the reason I asked this question is because I just got a letter the other day from somebody up there in that neighborhood wanting to know who should be maintaining that piece of property, and the fingers are pointing in a different direction.
I got the same letter from the village of Fultonville for violation. It is currently still owned by the land bank.
Okay.
If the deed is in the name of the land bank, it will not be deeded to the county until our foreclosure process is complete.
Okay.
Like I said, we can't even proceed with that until after August 31st.
So the land banks are the one that should be up there maintaining the property still.
Yes.
Martin?
So when we were negotiating this initial agreement, we had to accept it, or else they would go through the foreclosure process, and then there was something that they couldn't go after grant funding, or they'd lose their charter, or something.
It put them in a bad light with, correct me if I'm wrong, would put them in a bad light if they had foreclosures. It put them in a bad position on future funding, whether it was grants or basically grants, I believe so, correct?
I thought he said that their charter might get revoked.
I don't remember those words, but you could be right.
That's a question for Tolman, I can't answer.
Yeah.
Could you
Good luck.
draft a question then? See what the ramifications of these properties going to foreclosure are?
I did speak with land bank representatives about the Ann Street properties. I was told that for the two Ann Street properties, that they were not interested in foreclosing because there was a potential for outstanding liens. I called the land bank attorney. I sent the land bank attorney a section of the law and backup documentation showing that that should not be an issue, that there should not be a lien issue on those properties, and there shouldn't be anything stopping them from foreclosing, or stopping them from moving forward with the properties and whatever they want to do with them. My understanding is that they had explained to their grantor that it was because of the liens that they didn't want to take the property, but the liens really are non-existent to my knowledge. I have not seen all the documentation, but based on how they have described it to me, and based on my discussion with their attorney, I think we have clarified that issue. My understanding is the land bank is going to be potentially discussing it at their board meeting. They have until the end of July to make a decision on what they want to do, and hopefully now that they have all the facts, that they can hopefully make that informed decision.
The last thing, Martin, they did have two buyers or two people looking to buy both those pieces of property up there on Ann Street. But the problem is the liens that are on the so-called liens or whatever they see there, the potential buyer is afraid to go forward with that information, so.
If there were, just to clarify, if there were liens on the property, the county would have gotten sued and I would have had that lawsuit. Which I did not have, and it is time
Those
limit.
were demolished, right?
Yeah,
So it's just a lot.
just a lot.
So can we get some clarification if this threatens their charter or whatnot? And
What I was told was that it was a discussion they had with the entity that is giving them the grant funding. And that the reason that that entity was telling them that they could potentially, if this is all on what I've heard, that the reason that the entity told them that they could send those two of the 3 properties to foreclosure was because of the liens. However, as I had mentioned, that's not,
So there are 3 properties. What's the story with the 3rd property then?
that one, I don't know what they're planning on doing, and I have not.
So, there's no liens.
Correct.
Well,
No,
there's
not
tax
as
loss,
close.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it's tax, that's what we have the right to foreclose. Thank you.
Right, our lien, we have our current tax lien,
Right, but
correct,
there's
yeah.
no private or corporate liens
Yes.
against or judgments.
Yes, because their taxes have been outstanding for 2 years, we could foreclose.
There's no cloud that won't be cleared by paying the back taxes,
Right. Correct. To my, that's my
to the
understanding.
best of your
To the
knowledge.
best of my
Okay.
knowledge. Right.
Can either confirm nor deny.
Continue, Martin.
So, how do we prevent more properties going to the land bank to prevent arrangements like we had or properties coming back to us? The whole point of the land bank was so that we didn't go through the cycle and got them back on the tax rolls.
Go ahead.
Just to address that, I mean, it seems like the start of all this is the remnants of the tax cycle that they get the property in when we transfer it to them, correct?
Well, some of it, because you have to remember, this goes back to the very first property, is that we transferred to the land bank. And at that point, the tax law was different than what it is now. At that point, the properties became taxable, and it was part of the resolution and the terms of conveying it, that they would pay that lag year in taxes. After that, the state changed when that exemption for land banks would go into place. So some of this issue could be avoided in the future, but
It has been avoided.
some of, yeah, well, moving forward, I think it would be clearer. But some of this is because of the tax law change, and there was the agreement that they would pay those taxes, and it did not happen.
Go ahead. I yield.
Of that, thank you. Of that list, all of these, how many did we give to them? And how many were private sales where they went out and sought them?
There was some.
I believe there's been about 4 or 5 properties that they acquired on their own, was not done through the county legislature granting them the properties.
But
Sure.
I think the answer to Martin's question, so if you wanted to prevent it, there's 2 ways of doing it. Number one, not transferring properties to them, and if they bid on properties at the auction, we have the final say in if we're selling them or not. So if you have a bidder that defaults, on 3 times, then I guess you'd want to give it a second thought if we want to transfer that.
But the,
Part of our terms and conditions of the auction is if an individual lets a property go to auction, they're not even allowed to bid it.
Correct.
on-
So they're not allowed to bid.
in subsequent auctions or
Right.
on other properties.
but
So
the,
it's three things.
But if they're going out privately and going to Brian Sweet, hey, I'll take your property and we'll convert it over, how do we prevent that?
There's nothing we can do about it.
but what you can may I? What you can prevent is the lag year is what we've had problems with, that's accumulated a lot. And I mean, we could make it that before we transfer the property to them, that they have to pay the lag year.
But the new
But
state law
doesn't-
grants that
They don't have to.
at time of transfer, when the deed is filed, the land bank is automatically exempt from that point forward.
What was your
The issue that we've been having is the properties the taxes that were on the property at time of purchase.
Right.
That's the property that, those are the taxes that the land bank is disputing and doesn't want to pay.
Right, like, so for example, we foreclose
That,
the gap between when the land bank buys and becomes automatically exempt, that's the chunk that they're disputing.
But by virtue of foreclosure, aren't we removing the back taxes when we sell it at auction?
The back taxes, but then new taxes come out.
The lag,
Right, it's kind
the
of.
lag. So, I mean, let's just, I would suggest we just agree that moving forward, we're careful the way we transfer property, and we think about ways to do exactly what Martin is talking about.
I also, and I know it's not really our place really, but I would like our county representatives that sit on that governing board to listen to the conversations that we are having in this room. And voice our concerns. I mean, they're major concerns. It's not pie in the sky anymore.
And one other thing, the last time you guys transferred properties, we did, to help mitigate some of this in advance, did charge a fee up front for some of the properties. It was a flat, like $3,000 a property fee up front. And part of the reason you guys did that was for equal treatment of how you do municipalities when you transfer.
But in the other issue, Chair, there was, take into consideration, we don't have a demolition team now, so we have to, if we don't assign properties, we won't let them buy them, we will need to come up with a way to demolish properties if needed.
It's an interesting concept.
It's required,
The grievance committee, I don't.
makes it.
But I think when we do transfer properties to other municipalities, isn't our policy that we have them pay the back taxes? Like, what did we do with Fort Plain when we
Yeah.
transferred that property on the corner? I thought that they had to make us whole with the back taxes.
Yeah. From then on, we had,
Now
but
they have-
before, it was normally $1 and it's theirs.
Right, so now we have two different ways that we deal with a municipality and a pseudo-municipality or pseudo-government organization. So if the town of Amsterdam wants a piece of property that has $10,000 back taxes on it and we foreclose on it, we ask them to provide us with $10,000 to make us square, and we give them the property. But we're not doing that with the land bank. With the land bank, we're saying, look, we're going to give you that property if they don't buy it at auction, that is. And all you have is the lap year where that is. But that's going away because the new law says that as soon as they acquire the property, they become exempt.
Which basically shortens the lag here time.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
if our representatives on that governing board, because the board governs that organization. So, yes, Tolga comes here and gives his presentation, he reports to that board.
So
We should be-
are you asking for those members to come here some nights so we can speak to them?
Or if Matt's okay with that, or, because we do have representatives on that board. And they should be reiterating our concerns so that we're not faced with these.
So are you asking to see if Matt would be opposed to it, or if he would like to speak to them, or how do you want to go with it?
He was just calling me, so I'm gonna just text him if it has to do with this. If you don't mind.
If he would like to meet with them, that's fine, or if he's okay with our representatives coming and we have a discussion in committee or something, or. I think the
Are you
message
talking
needs to
with
get
the
back
county
to them.
executive?
I think they got it.
I just emailed him.
Hasn't hurt to reiterate that. But the thing I was gonna mention, on what Bob said, when we transferred to like the town of Palatine, that Pizza Hut, that was a big controversy. And I think we put in it that if they don't do what they're saying they're gonna do within a year or 2 years, that was in the resolution, then the county would give the property back. But we didn't, I don't think we charged them for the taxes.
I think that's in the other resolutions for the land bank also.
Is it? Well, I think Yeah, I think it is, but I think Lambic has their own, right? Don't they, like, they have a year to get back on the tax roll or something?
So they're not even living up to their organizing document.
Well, that's part of the discussion with the stone lodge.
Right, that's a 2 or more years.
More.
Yeah.
Ryan was here.
When you transfer that?
When we were starting to transfer.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, we did put a time frame on it of 2 years.
Like 6 years.
The first year, I think it was, in 14.
And the first victim was Boston Board.
Yeah.
That was one of our major concerns because it was a nice architectural property and we thought that it had some more value than, so it's no longer. So lesson learned.
Anything else, Rick?
Nope. I'll set, chair.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, first resolution authorizing the sale of real property acquired by tax foreclosure in the town of Kennesaw. Motion,
Sponsor.
sponsor, second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion on this?
Is this vacant property? Is this a house? What is this?
This is a property that's in disrepair. The neighbors expressed interest and he plans to demo on it, so.
Okay.
I think it's a definite win for the county.
Will we have a lag year tax?
Yes.
He will pay the taxes going forward, yes.
Any other
This
discussion?
has been tax delinquent since 2015.
Okay, so there's no more,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
who sponsored that?
Diamond and Wilson.
Okay, next resolution authorizing the county treasurer to dispute.
We're gonna dispute it.
Disperse mortgage tax money.
I'll sponsor.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next resolution. Resolution authorizing the purchase of property from the Montgomery County Industrial Development Agency.
I sponsor.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Next resolution approving the abstract of audited claims. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Who seconded?
Roy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Did you do the IDA one?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, did it? Thank you.
Okay. And, thank you to Sean. I did get the, Bob Patel, sales tax report. And I did do some numbers off to the side, Bob, where the difference is, and you can see that so far things are going in a good direction, but it's still get nervous with, still with spending and the different things, so, you know, it's a good sign, but I don't want the,
Yeah, I thought I added up to 3.5 million. Maybe I was, what you're saying is 2 million over prior?
No, at the very bottom, 278.
Yeah, okay. Close.
We've had some, I mean, nice thing about this is you can go back and compare it to last year and the year before. I mean, last year in April and May, we took a big hit, but you can kind of see where we're going.
Just trending in the right direction.
Sean, on the dashboard report, there seems to be, trying to think what it was now. Fringe benefits. Huge difference between previous year and this year.
In the general fund?
Yes. It went from like 1.8 million to 3.3 or 3.4.
I'll look at that, but it's possible it could be some
paid some things in advance or anything like that, or
I'll
not?
check that out for you.
Okay. Any other questions on the dashboard report for Sean? There wasn't anything else on it that came out, that jumped out at you, was there? Any other discussion? Motion to adjourn? Motion. Second?